Hey, I know you're kind of busy getting ready for your content presentation. The majority of this module is set aside for you to do that. So I don't want to take too much of your time. But I do want to share with you that uh, a little bit of where we just came from on ethical decision making and where we're going with culture of accountability. So we're big proponents for the concept of a culture of accountability, which is essentially being able to look one another in the eye and have those frank, candid conversations about individual behaviors. And there's a lot of emphasis on this as far as supervisor training goes, but not a lot on peer to peer and organizational climate type uh, training. And certainly not that's promoted to the masses, right? So, our job as facilitators in these moments where we're having a conversation about individual decisions and actions and what led to those and how they could have been done differently. And so, whether we're looking at that in terms of ethical decision making or after action review facilitation or just a casual water cooler conversation, the reality is, as facilitators, we need to be prepared to facilitate a wide range of accountability perspectives. And in the book, The Oz Principle, they talk about this ladder of accountability. And I want to share a little bit of that with you. I don't want to go into a lot of detail. I'm not going to reteach the whole thing, but just know that there's a spectrum. And I've always avoided the term ladder because it seems as though it's so finite in that in this moment, this is where I sit on it. And the reality is it's very fluid, right? And because I'm denying this particular thing, I'm just doing it on this particular thing. And so somewhere in there, there's a lot that can't be explained. But in this moment, as I'm listening for cues that a person is at a certain level, I want to give you a tool that you can begin to use. Now, I want you to go research this on your own, spend a little bit of time on it, develop an understanding of it. It's not part of the class, but I want to introduce you to the concept of the ladder of accountability. And it is divided basically into two sections, the upper rungs and the lower rungs, where the upper rungs represent the proactive and accountable behaviors, and the lower rungs represent a reactive and abdicating behavior. And if you can imagine any situation you've ever been in, you find that there's this point of accountability where a decision is made whether or not I'm going to do something about it or I'm not. And or if I don't even know it exists. And so the ladder of accountability gives us the tool to have this conversation. And I've posted it here, and I'll give you a copy of it in the notes that you can download as well, as along with some org questions in the last module. You'll be able to help facilitate how do we move through this ladder. And so at the bottom of it is the denial, right? The non-existence, there is nothing to be accountable for. I walk by and pretend that it doesn't even exist. The next level up is blaming others. This is the they kind of stuff, right? Like the omnipotent they wrote the policy, they don't understand the us versus them arena. Then the next level up from there is the I know it exists, I just can't do anything about it, right? It wasn't me, they going back to the others, the blaming, but the I'm a victim of their whatever. The next level is wait and hope, as if somebody else is going to do something about it. We talk about bystander intervention and that kind of stuff in some of the other trainings. And how do we do something about this? This is the point where a lot of us get in trouble because we know what ought to be done, we just don't do it, right? It's not like we can any longer deny it. We can't really blame others. It's, I could do something about this, but I think someone else is going to. And this is a very dangerous place to be in. One of my favorite quotes is from Napoleon: define reality, then give hope. Well, the next level up is acknowledge reality. And as leaders, as facilitators, our job is to literally be I should say figuratively, be the force that moves people from this rung to the next, because this is a hard step to take. And often our job is, as Napoleon said, to define reality. Help them see it. And going back to the Ask Seek methodology, I can't just tell them this is reality. I have to help them find it. And when they find it, I have to give them the hope that they can do something about it. But hope is not a method, right? We have to actually do something. We have to take action. So we acknowledge reality, then we get them to own it and take a position. So as we lead them through the ethical decision making or ethical reasoning model, what we ultimately do, remember that section where we get to commit, and I say commit to a decision. I don't care what it is. I want you right now in this moment, write it down, commit to one of these things or something else, decision. Because in this moment, I want you to own it. I want you to commit to a decision. And so when they do that, it begins to take shape in their mind, the imagery, and we're helping them find their way through this ladder of accountability. Once they own it, we then begin to ask them, okay, find the solutions to it. And this is where, going back to recognizing the conflict, we tie that cable to the taking action, crossing that river of fear between commit and act, where the barriers that would prevent them from doing it and going all the way back down to the bottom and I can't, right? No, stay up there, commit to that decision, and find a way to do it. Overcome those barriers, cross that river of fear. And then finally is the act, right? We know this. We know that we've got to cross that river of fear and we have to take action. So this is where we implement solutions. And the last thing, we get to the top of the ladder, just do it. Whatever that is. And so oftentimes the writer is the one who is overly obsessed with this accountability thing and is quick to blame others. The elephant, in most cases, could care less about whose fault it is or whatever. It just has those feelings of, I think somebody else is responsible for this. It's the writer who rationalizes. So as we do that blue zone training that I talked about in the last video, it's bringing them together in this moment and getting them to acknowledge reality. That's a big piece of your job as a facilitator in these types of trainings. It's not to throw stuff up on a PowerPoint and hope it sticks. No, it's to actually make that connection.